Hi and welcome back to the next video. This is video 26, and this time we will add in our front end, we'll create BlogEntry component, so we can add a new BlogEntry or a post to our backend, and there we will add the body as Markdown, and we will also upload the header image for our BlogEntry. Our video structure is as always: first we have a look at our video outcome, then we will write or read the user story for this, and then we implement the user story and close it. So let's have a quick look at the outcome of the video. So you see here we have a new button logout where we can log out from the application. If we are logged in as we are now, we can hit the create post route here, create BlogEntry, and we can upload an image for this BlogEntry. We can say we have a new title, let's say 2nd of September. Let's have a description, and you also, to have this button here valid, you need to enter some markdown or whatever. And to see that it's actually markdown, we can copy and paste some real markdown. You see we now have here like our markdown preview, and we have here h3 heading, and so we can hit add BlogEntry, and then this gets added, and we navigate back to our home component, and you see now we have 23, and this should be the last where we have title 2nd of September. So this works as expected. Let's have a short look at our story. Here we are in video 26. So the title is Page for creating a BlogEntry with Markdown and header image, and we do some refactoring. So the story is, as a user I want to be able to add a new BlogEntry, so it is published on the homepage. So as you remember, on our homepage now we display all our BlogEntries that are available, and so it should also show up after we edit it. So the acceptance criteria are: we want to have a new page where a user can add a new BlogEntry with image, with body, so with Markdown for the body of the article or for the BlogEntry, with the title and the description, so very basic. The Markdown, so the body of this BlogEntry, should have a preview, so you will see how it looks later if we display it for the user that is just navigating over the pages. We want to have, or it should be on a new route that's called create BlogEntry, and the route should be protected and should only be used by a user with JWT. So this is basically the same it's the same guard that we are using for the route where we update our own user profile. So we can just reuse this and don't need to add anything special. And we also want to add a logout button and do some minor refactorings. So now we can go into our code and move this to doing. So we see we are here on our branch develop, so we have everything here, and now we can go with git-flow feature start, move to our new feature branch. So here we are in video 26, so we go to feature branch video 26. Now you see we have a new feature branch created from develop. It's called feature video 26, and so we can start. So first thing that we can do is we can start our API, and we can start our front end. And on our third we go into our front end, so we can execute some Angular CLI commands, and we can also start Postman, so we can see the requests that we need. So probably one of the first things that we can do is, you remember in the last thing we added our home component where we display all our BlogEntries, and we have here our app component. And at the beginning we were having here the entries with login and the link that are being used here in our met select format option, and we loop over these entries, and then for every entry that we have we add a new met option, so a select button, so we can show this in the front end. But I want to refactor this now because I want to add the logout button where we execute a different method or function where we log out. So this is getting a bit easier, or we can do this in pure HTML. So if we go to our front end, you can see that we should get here some entry data. Is everything started correctly? Yes. So let's reload. So let's see what is this. Never seen this before. Let's start it again and let's see what's happening. So we started, our front end is also here. Let's see here. So now we get everything. And so we can see we have here the things, and I want to add a logout button here. So it's still all select buttons, and we can just do like add our met options here, so we can remove from select the selection change, and then we can just call the function. So what we can do is we have here still our select, and then we give it some options. So we have met options, so the same that we had before, but now we added every single thing. So we have, if we click, we want to execute something, and that is our navigate to function. And here we want to call it with login. And as you remember, we have here our navigate to. It takes the value and then it's navigate to the route. So we can just do it like this. You could also do it with router link, whatever you like. So there are always different options. So we can just copy paste this. And then in the second one, we go to register. And this should be named register. Then we have something like update profile. And this goes to update profile route. And the next thing is what we want to do now. We want to log out. And so for this, we are not going for navigate to function, but for logout. And since this is not here right now, we can just add this as a function here. And we can remove our entries here. And can just say logout. And then for this, we have here our out service, or authentication service. And this has a login method, a register, is authenticate, get user ID, and you see we log in, we set a token in our local storage. And so we can do the same if we or a user logs out. We can just say local storage dot remove item and remove the item from our local storage in the browser. So the user is getting logged out. And now we can just call this here in our home component or our app component. So we add this as a dependency and we just say our constructor, and this is our out service, and this is the type authentication service. And so we can just say this dot out service dot logout. And so we can validate if this is working very easily. So you see here we have our storage. And if we log in now here with our basic user, we see that we have here now our block tokens over the JWT. And now if I hit logout, you see it gets removed. So everything works as expected. So we can go to the next thing. And this is, we want to go to our Angular CLI here. So you see we are in our folder front end. And now we want to generate our new component where we created BlogEntry. So we can just say ng for the CLI, generate component. And then we want to go into our components folder. And there we want to create our create BlogEntry component. So we just hit enter. And then we see that we have here our new component. And it's also added to our app.module. You can see it here. We now should have it in declaration for the create BlogEntry component. And so we add this now to our routing module. So we can just do this under home and just add new object here, and this has a path, and the path should be create block entry. The component is obviously our create block entry component, and as you remember, only a user who is logged in should execute or should open this route. So we add our auth guard where we check, as you remember, is the user authenticated, so it implements we can activate. So this gets always called and returns a boolean, and if this is true, then the user can go to this route, and if it returns false, then he's denied. So we check if the user is authenticated with our auth service, and then if he's not, we navigate back to log in and return false, and if he is authenticated, so if the JWT is valid, you see it here, then he has access to this route. So this is all that we are doing in this file here. And so we can now add, like for example, a button to our app component, to our toolbar, where a user can create a post. So we can just add a new button here, and we can say this is also a matte flat button. It has also a margin left from 20 pixels, and the router link this time is not users, but it is create block entry. And so we can say, to make it shorter, create post, whatever, or create block entry, whatever you want. And now we can check. We have here create post, and you see, as I'm not logged in, the guard works and throws me to the login. And so if I log in now, you see I'm now logged in, and now I can go to create block entry component. So the guard is working. Also, if we want, we can remove the admin button, since the admin component has no function till now, so there's nothing here. So we can just remove this, or let it be there, whatever, it doesn't disturb us. So we can now close all these files here where we are. And now we can go to our BlogService. As you remember, we are using the index_all function on our home page, where we display all the block entries. Let's see why this takes so long. Yeah. So my internet connection is sometimes a bit slow, but don't worry, this is working. So this is something I have to check sometimes. But let's see how many calls are we making. Yeah. So let's go on. And so we have now our index_all. And we also want to have something where we post, or where we add a new block entry. And this should be an observable from type block entry. And here we provide the block entry that we want to add. And then we can just return this .http. We want to make a post request with the type block entry. And here we need our route where we want to post. So this we can just simply go in here. We see we have here we want to create a block entry, so we can just look here where's the post request create block entry. So we are just going against this route here, so we can copy this and add this here. And then what we want to have is of course our block entry, so we can just return this. And we also want to upload our header image for our block entry. And this is from type form data. And we are returning also an observable here, so that we can, for example, display a progress bar like we did before with our other image uploads, where you can look up everything in the videos. That's a bit more explanation than here. So here we also want to make a post request where we upload this data. So this is from type form data. And then we are going against this, but then against image upload, exactly as it's specified here where we upload our image. And you see we need our JWT, and in the body we need as form data, so with a key and a value, our picture to upload this. So here we add our form data. And we can also give it like some options. So we want to report our progress, so we can later use this when we display a progress bar or something like this. And we want to observe all our events that we have. And we can make just a semicolon here. This should be done. And now we can move on. So we have here our BlogService now. Now we have all the functions that we need to execute with our component. So we can move on to our blog component. So one of the first things that we want to do is like the same where we upload a picture for our user profile, where we update this. So we can copy and paste here a bit of thing. So we have our interface for a file that we need. And we also want to implement the file upload the same way we did here. So we are having a view child where we later go for the element in our HTML file upload, so that we can work with this here. So I will explain this later. And of course we are having also a form group where we want to have our form for creating our blog entry. So that now in our constructor we need two things. So first is our form builder from Angular. So this is just the form builder. And the second is our blog service that we will need to execute a post or the upload header image functions to get the connection to our backend. This is our blog service. Then we have like our entry on init where we will initiate this form, so we can simply go for this form and we will set this to our form builder, and then we want to group this form. And as you remember, we have our model here. So you see we have our blog entry interface, we have ID, title, slug, description, body, dates, likes, author, header image, publish date, whatever. And so to make it simple, we can later use all this stuff here, but at first we just want to create. It's very simple. So we will have an ID, and here we can go, this has a value initiated of null, and it's disabled, so because you should not be able to set this, because this is done by our database, because this is our primary key column, so we don't need to do anything here. Then we are having a title. This is instant for the start, it's null, but it is required. So a blog entry always needs to have a title. So we can say this is required, that our form is valid, because later we can, before we send our form to the backend to create this blog entry, we check here in our front end, is this form valid, or is any of this validations here violated, then it will highlight this in our HTML. So since with Angular material, it will check in this form is there any validation like this here violated, and if it's the case, then you cannot click the button to upload something. Then we have our slug. This is also created by our backend. So the initial value is null, and it's also disabled true. Then we have a description, and the description is also initiated with null, and it is required because every blog entry will need a description, and the same goes for body, where it's initiated with null, but every blog entry needs to have something written in our body where we can display to the user. And at last, we have our image that is also initiated with null, and then set if we upload an image. So our very simple function here to add a new blog entry is post, and this is very simple. We go against our BlogService. We use there our post function that we just created, and here we want to use our form, and then we get our raw value. So this will add the complete value from this form. So it will add the ID, title, slug, description, body, and header image to this here, to our function. And so we subscribe to it. So the observable here, the post, the observable is getting hot and gets executed. So another thing is that on click, I will explain this later, and our upload file. So now it's first time for our HTML, and then we add this function see later, because then it's easier to explain if you see what we did in our HTML. First I want to add like the same style that we already had in other components to this component here, to our image and container classes, so that's a little bit better to look at it. So we can save this, and then we can add everything that we need here. So at first we are having also a form, and this is binded to our form group. And this is of course our group called form. And then if we add later here in this form like a button with type submit, then we can say with ng submit we execute our post function in the component. So you see here, then we execute this and we get the raw value from our form. So for example, we can just add the button here, and this can also be a matte flat button with color primary, and this should be disabled if our form is invalid. And we can also go with a type, and this should be of course submit, and button should never be with 3t but with 2, and then we can just say add blog entry, something like this. So this will check, we hit the button, it's type submit, then we execute this function here, because this executes the button if clicked with submit, but this button will be disabled if our form is invalid. So we could now, I think, go into our front end. We could go to create post, and you see this button is invalid because our form validators here are saying it's invalid because there is no title, it's initiated with null, so it's required, and there is no value. The same goes for description or body or header image. So we need to add this here into our form so that the button could be clicked. So we can add this like in a div. here. You can also move the button in the div. And then in our div, we want to have a met card where we display everything. So if we have a look now, you can see that we are here now on our card. And we can also say it should, so we just like with style normally should do this with classes, but we can say with style we want to have a width of 80%. Or let's give the class the card our class container. And you see here it resets our connection because I'm restarting the front end. So that's not disturbing you. So now you see we have our BlogEntry, our component here, and then we could do like a div inside this here. And you see in our component container, you see we make display flex, we made it a column, and we align all our items in the center. So if we say here our style is width 80%, then this should get centered. And inside here we could make another met card, and then we could use the met card content. So we can see it here, Angular material card. The card has, so you see my internet is very slow. But normally a card is having different like areas where you can display data. So one is the header, the met card heading or header, then the met card content where you can display all the data. Let's see if the internet is here. You see, and so you see you have a basic card, but we could also go for more examples, and you see this here is the header and this here is the content. And you have also like some buttons. And so here we want to just go with our met card content. And there we could display our image, or we want to upload our image here. And so we want to display this only if our form.get, and then we can get like something from our form. And so we can just say this here is our header image, so we get this value, and then we access our value. And if this here exists, so if this is having a value and not null like now, then we want to display the image. And so for this we can just use the link that we are having here. So we have here a blog entry for download image. You see this here is the name of the image, so we just use this link here, we add this, and at the end we can just with interpolation add the source. And so we can go for form.get, and then we get our header image, and of course we get from there the value. So then we go, or we try to get the image from our localhost 3000 API block entries image, and then we have here the name from our image. And so then it's getting displayed. So then we can make a list. And here we could display a met progress bar, so where we display our progress from the uploading. Angular progress bar. Let's search it here. So we see here like the progress bar. So this can be displayed, or that we can use when we upload an image. And so we can bind this to a value, and this is our file.progress. And so since we are getting from our uploading function here in our class, you remember we have here report progress to, the report how big everything is that we uploaded, and then we can display this like in 100% or whatever and see it in our front end. We can just go over this later. And then we can add like a met card actions that could normally be like the likes, whatever. And here we could just add another button. And this is also a material button with the color 1. And if we click, then we want to execute our onClick function. And we can add to this button also an icon, so we can use the met icon here, and then we can specify how this icon is named. So this could be cloud upload, and you can see it here, Angular material icons. So you can here in the icons material design, you can go for any button here and just add this name here to here, and then it's getting displayed. And we can also add a small and name this, for example, upload image, so that you know what you are clicking on. And then we have like the most important thing. So we have here our input from that's using the input from our browser, and there we are using our type file. So we want to upload one thing, and here we give it the ID file upload. So exactly that we are looking at with our future child. We go search for file upload and go for element ref. So for this here, so for this thing. So we catch it with this. And give it also the ID file upload. We can give it name file upload, and we just want that we accept here only images. And the style could be display none. So this input is not getting displayed. You see it here. Normally, if we do not add this here, this would be here, but we hide it so that we use instead this button here to execute this. So remember, if we click on this button, then we want to open this here. And so we now have to add this functionality to our onClick. So in our onClick, we can just say we go for our const file input, and this is we get our file upload .native element. So you remember we then go for file upload, so for this that we get from the HTML here, and we get the native element from our HTML, and then we just go for file input, and then we click on it. So this is like the same as if this here would be visible, and you would click on this, yeah, to upload a picture. But now we hide this, we click here, and then we execute this here. So we go for display none again. We go for file input click, and then we can listen for on change. So if anything changes here, we want also to execute something. And this should be our file here. This has data in progress and progress. So we have data is our file input.files at the array number 0 because we are just uploading one file always. Then our in progress at the moment is false. So this is just a Boolean value. And our progress is 0 at the beginning. Then we can go for file upload.native element and value empty. I have 2, 1, and then we can just call our upload file function here. So now for uploading our file, we can especially just use the thing that we used here for our upload file from our user. So we can just make a little bit copy paste here and adjust what we need. So obviously you see we have here form data, because you remember if we want to upload our image, we paste or we give this here as form data, so we have a key and a value. So we add like a key pair, so we append it to file and then we add to this our data. And then we say now we are uploading in progress, and now we go against our BlogService and against our image upload function. So upload header image, we add here our form data. We need to import our everything that we're using here, and then we go over it. So here in our BlogService we add our form data, so we have here our file.data from here. And you remember we added here our file input from our file, so to data our file input, our file from place 0, so the first file, because we're only uploading one file, because we set here type file and not files, just uploading one. Then we make a switch, so if we upload progress, because this Angular material progress bar is only displaying 0 to 100, we round our complete loaded, or we multiply it with 100, and then we divide by the total size. So for example, the total size is 100,000 kilobit, so this is here, and then we have loaded 50,000, so half we multiply by 100 and divide it by this, so we get like 50%. And this is something where we set our file progress to, and you remember here we have it set to our value file.progress, so it always displays the value. So later, if there's an error, then we catch it and we say we are not anymore in progress, and we return an observable with the message upload failed. And we also subscribe it, and so we catch here the event. You remember in our service we observe all the events, and then if there's being returned like an object or event object, then we patch our form, and then of course not our profile image but our header image, so we patch the value. And as you remember, if we upload an image to this endpoint, we can see. So now I need to log in and get a valid JWT, so I can do this. Yeah, my connection is very slow today. So I need to reconnect to the database that's online. And if I now log in, we should get a JWT back. And then we can provide this here to our BlogEntry upload image endpoint. And as you see, if I do this, I get return back. And so then we want to add our file name here, because we just need this for our endpoint, because then we can go against our download endpoint and just add the name, and then it's searching in the right folder, because we're going for the specific BlogEntry's image download path link. So we can later log this out here to make it easier to follow. So now we can switch back to our HTML, because now we have like the type of file upload done. So we can, for example, just try this here. So if we upload image and I open here our developer tools, it should log out everything if we upload it correctly. So if we just upload this here, you see we get in return our object, our path. So now it's added, and you can also see, always see, that in our API, in uploads, there was added 2 new files, one that we upload with Postman and one that we upload with our browser. And that's got saved. So we can remove this console log here. And now, as you remember, when we upload our file, and we have added this file name to our form here, to our header image, and then we need to add all the other stuff like the title to our form. So now we can make another div and give it also our class container. You remember our container class is just doing some display flex, align item center, justify content, flex direction, and so on. And here we want to have a met form field. And this form field is just having an input. It's net input, so material input. And we have a placeholder. This could be ID. And we can go for form control name. And this is our ID. So the form control name is going to our ID. We see this. So this form control name is connected to this form here. And then it looks for the ID. So for this here. So this is connected. So we can now make a little copy and paste to get it faster done here. So the next thing is pretty the same. We say title, and this gets connected to our title. And then we have our description, and this is getting connected to our description. And we have our body, and this is getting connected to our body. So we can now check if everything is working. So let's see. We reload this here. Cannot find control with name body. Of course, it should be written small, capital. So now we see we can upload an image. I have to restart again. Sorry for my internet connection. So now we should be able to upload this image here. No. Gateway timeout. So we are not started. So we are just trying to connect to the database. Let's see. So right now it's Also trying to entry submit if we hit this button here. So you just remove this entry submit here and just add this here to click, and then we want to execute our post function. So now try this again. So if we upload our image, then we see we upload this here, and then we need our title. Let's say test title. Let's say 25th of August. And then we can hit our add block entry. Now we can see we have made a post request here to block entries. And now we can see we added our mirror, as we said. And then where are we? We added everything here: ID null, title, test title, slug, description, download. And now we can navigate back to our homepage and let's see if it got added here. So I think it normally should be at the last page. So now we see we have here our test title, 25th of August. So this worked, and we also have added our offer automatically, and this got extracted by our JWT. So now we can go on. So this is here because I have deleted some files sometimes and so on, and so there are not all images still stored in the backend that I have in my database for the block entries that belong together. So now we can probably make this here a bit nicer, because we said at the moment we are having here just like a normal input, but we want to have, like in our story we wrote, we want to have Markdown. So we can just go for ngx Markdown, which is a package for also from npm that can display Markdown. So we can pass marking from HTML, highlight syntax highlight, and so on. So we want to install this in our front end. So we go to our front end shell and just save this to our package.json and add this. And let's see what we need in our module. So we need to import our Markdown module for root here in our configuration. So we can just add this here to our app.module. And then we can just say Markdown module.forRoot. And so we can now use this. Let's see, I think here was a stack blitz, so we can just have a look at this, how they implemented it. So we can see here we have our HTML, and we have just a normal text area and a Markdown. So this is using this here, and this is just binding to some examples here. You remember Markdown, if you make like one hashtag, it's like an heading, h1, or you can make a list, whatever you want, or make code highlight. We can do everything stuff, and now we should see how this looks rendered in our browser here. And we can already copy. You see here we have here our Markdown. So this here is code. We can change this, and this is getting displayed. So we want to do like the same stuff here. We can do this very simple. We go into our create block entry component. We have here our met form field, and we can add another div around this. And then we have here our met form field, and you can give the div a little bit of style. So we want to display this as flex so that we can display stuff next to each other. And this should have a width of 100%. And then we can go for a met form field, which should have a width of, let's say, 45%, so a little bit less than the whole page, or the half of the width of the page. So then we can replace our input with our text area as in the stack blitz. And this is also a met input. With rows 15, we can give it a height of 15 rows so that it gets large displayed. We can add a placeholder, and we can just say enter Markdown. Let's give it the class variable text area as in the example, and our form control name, so again is like normally our body. So now next to our form field we want to display like the outcome so that we see what we're actually doing in Markdown. And we have to bind this to some data, and this is our form data, so we can go here for form.get, and we want to get the body from the form. So we want to form get, we get the body value, and we access the value. And here we need to close this. Then we can already try if this is working. So we missed some stuff here. Why is it saying our BlogEntry component? Paginate, did I forgot something here? Yeah, I think I have to restart the server so that everything gets compiled correctly. So let's see if this works now. So normally we can just then, for example, copy like some stuff here, and then this should get displayed on our right side as we wish. So now we have to wait till this building is done. So now everything looks good so far. So let's reload this page here. Now you see if we enter Markdown here, it gets displayed also here. And so we can probably give our Markdown a little bit of styling so that we see everything that's going on here. So let's give it a border style. Let's say we it's dotted, the border style. And we can give it also a width of 35%. And let's say margin left 10%, so it's not directly attached to our text area here. So we can remove this comment here. Let's see now. So this is still very small, so I think we should make this whole stuff here a bit wider. So let's see, why is this here so small? So this container. Yeah. No. We can probably give this here a style with 80%. Let's see how this looks. This looks definitely better. So now we have like here our markdown that we enter, and here everything we want to display. So we can now add like the image again. We can add test title Thomas. We say test description. And now we can, for example, also add some syntax highlighting, whatever we want here in our markdown. And you see now we have here our markdown. And how are they here? Variable binding. So let's see if it looks a bit nicer here. Yeah. So, but we have basic markdown here. So we have like a header from type or an H2, we have an H3 heading, we have a list, an ordered list, an unordered list. We have here like language TypeScript. You could also see what did they add here, that this gets highlighted like this. So probably some CSS, yeah, some text area here. Let's try if we add this here, what happens. Yeah, a little bit better, but I think that should be enough for now. So you see, we can now upload this image. We can also see if I go to network and if I throttle this to, let's say, free tree or good free tree, and I add another image. And you see we are having the progress here actually displayed. And then it should change. You see here. Then we have our title, we have a description, we can add this. And so we can also say, let's say in our BlogEntry component, if this is done, we can pipe the outcome, and then we can tab, and then we can just say this .router.navigate, so we don't have a router here. And then we can just navigate one up. Something like this. Then we tap. And so now we added it successfully. So we add a file, we add a title, we add some markdown, we add a BlogEntry. If we add this, we go again to our home page. And now you see we have 18 entries. If we add another one, just very fast, then you see we have 19 entries. So this is working quite nice and much as is expected. Probably I will do another blog tutorial where we host, or where we will do some advanced stuff where we don't make this with Markdown, or where we also upload images and the text and so on. Yeah. But for now this is good enough, and then in the next video we will also make a page for one, where you can just click here onto this BlogEntry, and then it gets displayed on one page so that you can read it slowly. So this should be all for this video. So let's check against our story. So we see here we have added a new page where we can add a BlogEntry with image, body, with markdown, title, description. We have a markdown preview. We have our new route BlogEntry, create BlogEntry. The route is protected, so you can only access it if you are having a valid JWT. And we have dump some refactoring and added the logout button and logout function in our authentication service. So what we can do now is we can add this to our code or to our repository. So we are here in video 26 and we say edit create BlogEntry component and service to add a new BlogEntry and image. So we push this to our remote repository. And then I will later merge it back into our develop branch, but only when we are on this, if the video gets released or published. So I will do this later.